course, around here you got a lot of churches. You don't see any Targets. You don't see any Walmarts. Not a Starbucks. Not a Wegmans.
Whole Foods is not nearby.
Nowhere near.
We're in the car with Nathaniel and his wife, Marquita.
Oh, they're going to coal dust right there. Look at all the train. Look how fast it is. And there go the piles.
How much it is.
Look how tall that pile is.
Videoed this. I'm Marquita Kurtz, native of Newport News. I am Nathaniel Kurtz's wife. I've been in the area for almost 35 years. So it's basically 3 sections of Newport News. So you have the Denby area, you have the Midtown, and then you have downtown. And really, if you want to push it to the 4, it's East End. So they always say anything past those railroad tracks is East End. And East End is the area where the coal dust is, which is poverty, health, wealth disparity, crime, and things of that nature.
East End is another name for the Southeast community. We pull off the highway on the last exit before it tunnels under the James River. Now we're at the southernmost tip of the city of Newport News, approaching the residential part of the Southeast community. Newport News is a narrow strip of waterfront that runs about 20 miles north to south along the east bank of the James River. At the southernmost tip, a whole mile of waterfront is dominated by Dominion Terminal Associates and Kinder Morgan Terminal, 2 coal terminals situated right next to each other. Just east of the terminals is Jefferson Avenue, which runs north to south. In this area, Jefferson Ave separates the coal terminals to the west from the neighborhood to the east. Jefferson Ave ends where the water begins south of the city, the James River connecting to the Elizabeth River in a natural harbor where the rivers start to turn into ocean.
I used to come out fishing with my dad out here every other Sunday. Actually, my mother lived here and my auntie lived here. And of course, you can see how close you are to
low-income Section 8 housing.
Yep. So, and you have predominantly African-American, Black and brown people that live here. Exactly where this house is, my uncle owned a house there, sold it, and they tore it down. Go back here, which is beautiful waterfront property.
Southeast Newport News has a gorgeous sunrise view over the water. The residents use the coastline for fishing, swimming, crabbing. This use makes a kind of value. It's sometimes called a use value. There's value in their use of it. But the land in this area has a low exchange value. It's relatively cheap on the market because of all the contamination and decades of government disinvestment. High use value plus low exchange value equals money to be made for developers who would sell that rich waterfront culture on the real estate market for a massive profit. New development puts the area in a precarious position in terms of gentrification. And there are no clear answers from the city about how new development might affect or be affected by coal dust. This episode will get into the complexity of what new development might give or take away from Southeast Newport News. I talked to several residents about all the changes and what stays the same.
We're sea people, We fish, we crab. My name is Lawrence Turner, born and raised here in Newport News. We get on boats and we go out in the water. Like, that's a part of our culture and our heritage here.
It's beautiful. I don't think not many people know how much a waterfront sits at the corner of Ivy Avenue.
Ivy Avenue is a short street that dead ends on the Elizabeth River. It's 3 blocks away from the coal terminal.
It's beautiful. It's a wonderful place if you love water. I'm Donquita Clements. I live on Ivy Avenue. I grew up in the East End, been here for the last 32 years of my life.
Growing up, it was fun. We were all over the place. We played sports. We played hot ball, which is a form of like a football, things like that.
The community is it's like everybody wants to give you a hug. The kids, and they're like, what y'all doing today? Can I come to your house? Then you have all the adults. If something happened, we're all hands-on. It's almost like a little small town at this point. And I know it's changing, but I feel like that part won't. Okay, my first encounter, I was telling my age, I was 17 years old, and I lived out in an apartment complex called Dickerson Court.
Dickerson Court is no longer standing, but when Donquita lived there in the 2000s, it was right across the street from the coal terminal. It's a few blocks west of where she now lives on Ivy.
And I couldn't figure out why I kept getting sick. When I finally went to the hospital, they swabbed my nose and all this black stuff came out. And they were like, where did you say you live again? And they explained that my respiratory issues was coming from where I live.
Do you have asthma?
Yes, I do.
Donquita moved away from where she lived at Dickerson Court in southeast Newport News because of her health problems in the mid-2000s. Around the same time, Lawrence was also in the neighborhood.
Growing up, like I would stay at my aunt's home. She stayed in Harbor Homes, which is on the terminal. Maybe 15 steps, give or take. So it was literally right there. It's just amazing because if you look at it, it's like it's mountains and mountains and mountains of coal. And we would take a shower, and she would leave the window open. It was a little small window, but she would leave it open to give it a chance to air out. So we would get in the shower. It'll be like a little shelf kind of sort of. We put like your soap and things of that nature, and it would be like black particles. When we're talking about the coal contamination, we're talking about air. Air goes anywhere. I mean, it's impossible to run from.
Lawrence and Donquita were both able to move away from Newport News as they became young adults. Not many people who leave southeast Newport News choose to come back, but these two did. The tight-knit southeast community was vital to Lawrence and Donquita growing up, and they wanted to contribute to it as adults.
I was a school counselor for 6 years, 5 at Woodside High School here in Newport News, in northern Newport News.
I own an organization called Break the Cycle, and our main goal is to advocate for more equitable experiences that looks different on every level in economic justice, social justice, environmental justice.
For Donquita, deciding to move back to Newport News was a health decision as much as it was a family decision. She has 5 kids who she homeschools with her husband.
We didn't come back because we wanted the coal dust, of course. We came back because we wanted to help, and we feel like if we come and try to be of some help and grow some plants and ask about community gardens and rally the kids to do positive things, that this can be an area that finally gets some light shed on it versus the negativity that's always talked about it. We've lived there, we've grown up there, and now we plan to grow our own family there.
But Donquita's children are dealing with the same health problems she had. The doctors told her it was from the coal dust.
The 2 toddlers always have a cough. It's like they're stuffy every day. And the doctor was like, I hate to tell you, but that it's your neighborhood. They're not stuffy all the time for no reason. They don't have allergies. The headaches, it's coming from the coal dust.
There are risks that go along with coming home for Donquita. Coal dust is one of them, from being so close to the coal terminal, right there just blocks away from her beautiful waterfront community. After Lawrence moved away, Newport News stayed on his mind. He traveled all over the country playing on his college football team. And afterwards, when he moved back home, it's like he saw his city for the first time.
So in the USA, you can go anywhere in the USA and you can go to a waterfront, and what you're going to get? You're going to get a lot of wealth. Miami, New York City, D.C., Newport News. You're going to get poverty. You got industry that's right there with billions, trillions of dollars, and you're going to get poverty. It's no place like home. Newport News has the potential to be just as, influential as a New York City. I just think, if they would have never put it right there, I just see like a different trajectory, maybe, sort of.
What would a Southeast community without the coal terminal even be like? It's hard to imagine. A gigantic new redevelopment in the neighborhood has some residents wondering if the changes will affect the coal dust too. There's upsides to the development, infrastructure, opportunities. There's downsides too, gentrification. Two main questions linger. How will the redevelopment affect the coal dust? Will it lead to cleanup? And how will the coal dust affect the redevelopment? Will newcomers be protected from the toxic dust? From the Repair Lab, this is Crosswinds. I'm Adrienne Wood. The place where Lawrence and Donquita used to live, Harbor Homes in Dickerson Court, was public housing that no longer exists. There's no question for residents that it had become uninhabitable by the time it got demolished. But the exact reason why varies depending on who you ask.
We were told that they were knocking down Harbor Homes in Dickerson Court because of the coal.
What? Do you remember hearing that?
I heard it. It wasn't like a particular, it was probably more of a rumor. Yeah, it was floating around like, yeah, that's what they're doing because the land was contaminated so bad.
I called the city to see if they could confirm.
Well, it was old.
This is Sheila McAllister,
Director of Planning for City of Newport News. It was old. It was, it could not be rebuilt. And because of the proximity to, I'm not going to say the proximity to the coal yard, but people did not like being that close to the coal yard, and we didn't like people being that close to the coal yard.
I just have kind of one particular question about how the coal dust was affecting,
I can't tell you how the coal dust was affecting people because I really don't know. The old housing, it didn't have central air, so people are going to have their windows up, and you have the interstate, and you get a lot of particles and things coming off the interstate, and then you have the industrial across the interstate.
That would be the coal terminal. It is next to a gargantuan shipbuilding facility that also potentially releases toxins into the air. City officials will often deflect complaints about the coal dust by pointing out how close the shipyard is, or they'll point to pollution from the interstate, which belts the neighborhood. Those factors all contribute to pollution, but because of the lack of close monitoring, there's also uncertainty around who's to blame. One thing residents do know for sure is that they can see the coal dust, like Lawrence saw it on his aunt's windowsill, and they can feel it in their lungs, like Donquita and her kids. The Harbor Homes in Dickerson Court demolitions were in 2011. The area was downzoned from residential to industrial. Since then, nothing new has been built on site. This is the sound of the area in southeast Newport News where Donquita and Lawrence used to live. If you stand facing west, it's just a big field now. You can see across the grass to the coal terminal, dozens of 10-story piles of coal. Behind me to the east is blocks and blocks of brand new apartments with brick facades and balconies. The area is unrecognizable to someone who may have lived here in 2009, 2010. I came here to meet with community advocate and neighborhood consultant Uganda Sample Jones.
I love your bright colors today.
Thank you. Got to brighten it up, show them the sun a little bit.
Yeah, it's summer, right?
Uganda greeted me with a big hug and a disarming smile. I was surprised by this because we had only met once before, 6 months prior, but that's just Uganda. She makes you feel like family. She wears bold, technicolor prints and has tattoos that say things like, "Just breathe." In the time we were standing there on the corner talking, 4 or 5 people honked their horns or waved at her as they drove past or said hi from across the street.
Hey, how you doing? So he has a nonprofit. We used to walk the streets.
In addition to running a community garden and doing grassroots organizing, Uganda serves on several municipal committees and boards.
Okay, so this is Jefferson Avenue between 16th and 12th Street right here.
Uganda walked with me down the narrow strip of redevelopment that runs 10 blocks south to north on the other side of Jefferson Avenue from where Harbor Homes and Dickerson Court were. All of this is still within sight of the coal terminal.
We have the school that's going there. It's going to be a park in the middle. We're going to have the apartments here. It's going to be like a community center underneath. On the other side is going to be houses. There's going to be another park down here. It's a lot of projects going on.
This is all part of a sprawling redevelopment of the Southeast community funded through federal housing and urban development. The $30 million project is called the Choice Neighborhoods Initiative, the CNI.
This is the meat of the Choice Neighborhood Initiative right here. If we were to walk down
Uganda's nonprofit, Empower All, connects government organizations and nonprofits to the Southeast community. This kind of bridge is really needed in big redevelopment projects like the CNI, where Uganda worked as a community liaison.
Yeah. So when the Choice Neighborhood Initiative came along, it spoke to me because I'm like, we had the opportunity to really drive what our community looks like.
Uganda's excited about a few really great things that have come out of the big CNI project. Several different community groups were invited to participate in the Community Advisory Committee, including Doris Miller Community Center, where Lawrence grew up playing football, as well as the YWCA, Southeast Care Coalition, and local faith-based organizations.
What was that process like?
At first, it was really fun. So much community involvement. People were excited. I was excited because I was the youngest person at the table. Like, for real, at the beginning. I stayed at the table because I was like, I don't believe that they're going to give you this money based off of what the community says. But they proved me wrong, which is a good thing. But just really driving that table it's been beautiful and disastrous at sometimes.
On another day, Uganda took me on a driving tour of the whole CNI area. We drove past where Harbor Homes and Dickerson Court used to be, the area that's now downzoned to industrial. On the other side of the street...
And these are the new apartments, the townhouses that we're building. And it's a lot of development happening. But I'm just so worried, if this land was, unbuildable, you can't build residents, housing on that land because of the toxic ground. It's right across the street. And the only thing that's really separating it is a man-made street. So it's the same land. Isn't this land toxic as well? Or is it less toxic because it's a little bit further away?
This is a question that's come up more than once with all the redevelopment that's going on in the Southeast community. If that land on the other side of the street is contaminated, whether from coal dust or combined pollution, what will be done to protect the people who still live here on this side of Jefferson Ave and the new people who are moving in? This is a resident giving comment at City Council.
With the CNI, that means new people are going to be moving in. So if we're going to have open air restaurants, nobody wants to pick up their fork and eat coal dust. Something can be done, and it should be done. Citizens of the east end of downtown Newport News have been breathing that stuff in since I was born, long before I was born.
The council did not respond. This is another resident at a community meeting about the CNI organized by the city.
So what is the city's plan? What are your plans to minimize the effects of coal dust coming in that area? You can build new homes in there, but the coal dust is still coming through.
What are the city's plans to minimize the effects of coal dust in that area? Again, no response. But in the air, there's kind of an unspoken attitude from both city officials and residents that's like, we finally have something good going on here. Don't mess this up for us.
We've never had anything like this in our downtown Newport News.
This is Uganda representing the CNI at a community meeting in January 2024.
We've been working on this for like 8 years. The city, everything, we said we wanted to be able to sing and dance on a roof. And we are able to do that right here. We have the area where we're going to be able to have rooftop entertainment.
Working as a community liaison means Uganda kind of has to play both sides of the field when negotiating between the city and the community. That rooftop entertainment she was talking about, it's part of the CNI. She told me more about it on our drive when we found ourselves at the southern tip of Jefferson Avenue, between the coal terminal and the water.
This is King Lincoln Park, but the culture people in our community call it Pickett's Beach. And that's because Mr. William Pickett bought this land for us back in segregation time because there wasn't anywhere on the waterfront where people could be. They classify it as a wild beach, so it's not cleaned.
This is a place where Uganda got to enjoy the waterfront in the Southeast community.
I used to come out here when I was a kid. My mom used to bring us out here. And I remember it was like none of that rubbish and stuff. It was a beautiful waterfront. It was a lot of black families that were out here. We used to sit out here and like eat crabs and stuff. So when I returned back, I was like, what in the world happened to our beach?
While Pickett's Beach is now kind of overgrown with bushes and brush, hundreds of feet away, a state-of-the-art seafood market is being planned as part of the CNI.
That seafood market it's going to be amazing. It's going to be overlooking the water. We have franchise opportunities on the inside. It's a rooftop entertainment, a lounging area outside. It's going to be beautiful.
The new seafood market has monetary value on the market, so the city sees it as worth investing in.
And it's a huge investment. I love our city for investing and seeing the value in the East End, but it's like, okay, who are you really doing this for? Empower the people through the process. Like, I have faith that this stuff is going to be cleaned up.
She's talking about the coal dust as well as all the other environmental hazards from the interstate and the shipyard.
Once, demographics change and stuff like that. But it's like, why do we have to wait for things to change? Why do we have to suffer now for it?
Who do you think is going to clean it up?
Oh, the city.
There's good and bad that comes with changes like the CNI. The seafood market is just one example of how use turns to exchange value and culture gets commodified through gentrification. In this case, Uganda and her family enjoyed use value of Pickett's Beach. They fished and ate crabs and hung out by the water. Now, that is being converted to exchange value, where newcomers to the area can buy that experience or a version of it at the seafood market. That transformation of value is part of how gentrification works. And gentrification is part of what the CNI is bringing to the Southeast community. On my walk with Uganda through the neighborhood, we headed north, away from Pickett's Beach, with new apartments to our right and the contaminated, empty field to the left. Beyond that, the towering coal terminal. Just north of the new CNI apartments are some older homes. They have porches and pointy roofs and very committed gardens. People in these homes deal with the coal dust too, but on this side of Jefferson Avenue, they weren't demolished or downzoned. They're still there.
Oh, there's Miss Millie. We can go talk to Miss Millie. She's on her porch.
Oh, great.
Hey, Miss Millie. How you doing? Yeah, we're actually doing some recording and talking about the coal dust.
And what? Oh, it's terrible.
You want to talk to Adrian about it?
I can tell her about it. But I can tell you, it's terrible down here.
Okay.
My tables are full of coal dust in my car. My name is Millie.
Hi, Miss Millie.
It's Raymond.
Hi there, Mr. Raymond.
How you doing?
But as far as the coal dust concerned, it's all over our cars. All over. Just every morning I come out here, I clean it up. Not every morning, but most mornings I clean the tables off. Come back the next day, they black all over the flower pots and on your porch, and then the windowsills. It's awful.
From her front porch, you can look across the field where Harbor Homes used to be and see the mountains of coal. You can hear the wind moving her wind chimes, wind that carries coal dust onto her porch and into her lungs.
How long have you been living here?
We've been in since 1953 or 54.
Oh, wow.
My neighbor just washed his house down the other day.
Oh.
I said, man, you got... I kept looking, I said, wait a minute. I saw him power washing it. Then I came back and I saw his railings. I thought it was gray. I said, Howard. He said, look, Miss Millie. I said, Howard, I thought your porch was gray.
Wow.
Look at that house. Whole new house.
Miss Millie is not just within eyeshot of the coal terminal. She's also just blocks away from the CNI redevelopment. With all the changes that development is bringing downtown, Miss Millie and Uganda wonder if that'll affect all the environmental hazards there as well.
I do think when these places being built come up and they move some white folks down there, it's going to be some changes made down there.
Did I tell you that? Did I say that?
If environmental cleanup finally happened in Southeast Newport News following white gentrification, it wouldn't be the first time something like that happened in the U.S. A 2014 paper from MIT suggests that Greenpoint, a Superfund site that is now a posh neighborhood in New York City, finally got the cleanup residents demanded for decades, but only after gentrification. In one interview, a resident says, I really feel that many things are probably happening because of gentrification. Gentrification led to environmental cleanup in other places too, like Chicago, LA, even Melbourne, Australia. Ultimately, it's the developers who are in control of this, not the residents and not the city. The developers are the ones driving the prices up and creating exchange value out of that contaminated land. Will this be the case in Newport News with the city's new developments in the Southeast community? At a community meeting in January 2024, I spoke with Tina Vick, City Council representative for the Southeast community. This is what she had to say when I asked her if newcomers to the neighborhood would have an effect on the coal dust.
They're a $2 billion company. Yeah. I don't think that's going to affect them that much to want to move unless their personal profits start going down because of the nature of the business. But we still have to continue to work if we have citizens who don't feel safe or are not safe, I should say.
For now, the coal dust lingers. Meanwhile, the prices of the surrounding properties have skyrocketed. A recent auction for an abandoned property in the Southeast community saw it sell for $50,000. A property that was $5,000 1 year ago. Average rent for a 2-bedroom in Southeast Newport News has risen 77% since the CNI began in 2019. Some residents are concerned that displacement will be a main effect of the redevelopment. Over 200 people used to live in the blocks where the new CNI apartments are now being built. It was a public housing complex called Ridley Circle. The 1950s-era cement units were in terrible condition with mold, asbestos, and long-neglected maintenance issues. The people living in Ridley Circle had to relocate for the construction to happen. Some relocated families were moved into other public housing units, but most were offered housing vouchers. The city told former Ridley residents that they could come back and move into the new homes. But not all of them are going to make it.
Who's going to live in these new apartments?
So the good thing about the Choice Neighborhood Initiative is that the residents are supposed to have first choice back. But what we have found when moving residents back to the lift and rise is that that's not necessarily true.
The Lift and Rise is the name of one of the new CNI apartment complexes.
They couldn't afford to live in River Circle. How can they afford to live in a brand new place?
This is the question that Uganda gets all the time. What about affordable housing? Before the CNI began, the Southeast community had a poverty rate of 54%, 3 times that of Newport News at large. How are the people who used to live in the 256 units of Ridley Circle going to be able to afford to come back? It's a question that pulls her in multiple directions as a community member, an organizer, and a consultant for the city.
It's 38 apartments for Ridley residents. All 38 apartments are taken up with Ridley residents. So they are coming back. And what I can say, the residents that were left and came back, the ones that I've seen there, they're doing very well now.
But there are financial requirements to be eligible to live in the new CNI housing.
Screen the people before you move them back in there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they screen them, make sure that they're working.
What's the criteria?
Well, because they were relocated because of the project, it shouldn't be any barriers. Okay. But what I have seen is that they are looking at credit. They are looking at what have you done in the time that you left Ridley Circle. Are you working now?
Some of those criteria, like credit and employment history, are barriers to people who want to return to the area. That's contributed to the displacement of some families who had lived in Ridley Circle before, to the disappointment of many, including Uganda.
Are we a city that is like, yeah, we want to bring in young people and stuff and have them working and everything, but are we taking care of our elders? Are we taking care of the people that's been in Newport News for all their life? Are we just running people out?
How do you go tell a group of people that think they're coming home, that they don't have a home to come home to, but when they ride through their neighborhood, there's new homes?
This is Donquita again. The old Ridley Circle public housing were 2-story apartments on the small side with low ceilings and peeling paint on the exterior. The CNI homes are new multi-story apartments with balconies and matte gray facades. There's even 24 brand new single-family homes.
If you're telling us that this neighborhood is for the people who lived here and they, all their blood, sweat, and tears in their community, but then you turn around and 80% of them can't come back because they don't qualify or some parameter, And I hate to say it, but it seems created. It feels definitely intentional.
Donquita also worries for newcomers to the city who don't yet know about the coal dust.
I don't think they know. I don't think they understand the severity of what they're coming to because it's shiny. In the beginning, it's, oh, look at the new house, look at the new neighborhood. Granted, Newport News is a wonderful city to live in. It's a wonderful city, but that's still something that's harming us as a people, period. It doesn't matter about your race, your class. You're going to be affected. Your plants will be dusty. Your house will be dusty. You're outside. You will constantly be sweeping and mopping and power washing. And most importantly to me, your health will be affected by it. And they're going to be coming in by the droves, but they have no idea that there's this situation that's awaiting them.
The new construction is less than a mile away from the coal terminal. So not only are longtime residents being pushed out with rising housing prices and new development, newcomers to the freshly constructed apartments are oblivious. What remains to be seen is if all this new energy and new money in the city will be what's needed to spur municipal action on environmental threats like coal dust. We don't yet know how the CNI will or won't affect the coal dust. It's not something the city likes to talk about. But the people who have had to move away due to higher rents or construction carry with them the effects of coal dust on their health and well-being as their old neighborhood morphs into something shiny but unrecognizable. Uganda is still hopeful about the role that residents can take in shaping the future of the neighborhood.
Gentrification is a thing, but we have a force in it if we keep engaged, if we keep lending our stories and communicating with our elders and making sure that we are driving the decision-making process around what's happening.
Lawrence Turner, lifelong resident of Newport News, also has mixed feelings but remains hopeful.
When you're from somewhere and you know the history, is frustrating. And everybody wants their city to look better. Everybody wants more opportunity. Everybody wants, nicer things. But I also see the flip side of it where you're relocating families that may have had that home in that community for 3 generations, and you're just kicking them out. But I'm hopeful and I'm prayerful that they'll figure a way to recognize these things that have been pillars in our community.
The culture of the city, the seafood, the waterfront, the community, those things are all so valuable. They're not just being threatened by gentrification, though. They also face the more existential risk of continued pollution from coal dust. But coal is valuable, too. Coal export is a $4 billion industry in the U.S. That value was built on the backs of marginalized communities who continue to foot the price for it with their health and well-being. Next time on Crosswinds.
You look at the East End side of Newport News and Lambert's Point. Capitalism at the expense of Black and brown people continues to be a trend.
It's all about extracting wealth, extracting labor, extracting humanity, and building wealth for private entities.
How did this happen? What did people experience as the tracks for present-day environmental racism were laid? In the next episode, we'll trace a journey following the coal back into the mountains of West Virginia and back in time to before the railroads got built. Crosswinds is written, produced, mixed and mastered by me, Adrienne Wood. Editing by Oluwakemi Aladesui of Rough Cut Collective. Scoring by Torin Burkett and me. Thanks to the Repair Lab funded by the Karsh Institute of Democracy at the University of Virginia. Transcripts for this and all episodes can be found at coaldustkills.com. Follow the Repair Lab on X at the Repair Lab or on Instagram at coaldustkills, or you can join our Facebook group, Coal Dust Kills.